Continuing with Section A5, hacking to damage a computer. This prohibits three types of behavior, all related to damaging computers. So let's look at these individually. Part A is knowingly causing the transmission of a program, information, code, or command, and as a result, such conduct intentionally causes damage without authorization to a protected computer. Section B, intentionally accessing a protected computer without authorization and as a result of such conduct, recklessly causing damage. And C, basically the same thing, however, a slight variation, intentionally accessing a protected computer without authorization and as a result of such conduct, causing damage or loss. So you notice in the difference between B and C is in B we have the term recklessly causing damage, and in C it's just causing damage. So one or more of these are commonly prosecuted in litigated provisions, and in some cases you may see multiples of these. But they cover things like viruses and malware, denial of service attacks, and deletion of data. Section A5A, the first of those sections, has four general elements: knowingly causing the transmission of a program, information, code, or command, as a result of such conduct intentionally caused damage to a protected computer without authorization. So you can see this clearly fits the pattern of viruses and Trojans and things. The biggest hurdle is showing that a transmission occurred. In what case it comes to mind is International Airport Centers LLC v. Citron. Citron was a former employee and he deleted proprietary data from his laptop before leaving the company, installed a secure erasure program to irreversibly delete the data. Installing that secure erasure program constituted a transmission. He downloaded the software and he used that transmission, or he executed the code to delete securely the data. Very much like a worm that goes through and deletes the data that's on your computer itself. Or even in ransomware, where it'll lock it up, and if you don't give them a password, your data is essentially destroyed. The second element requires the plaintiff to demonstrate the result of knowing transmission. The defendant intended to damage a protected computer. Intentional in this case is defined as performing an act deliberately and not by accident with the conscious purpose of causing damage. The third element to this particular section that has to be proven is that the defendant caused damage to a protected computer. So damage is any impairment to the integrity or availability of data, a program, a system, or an information. And the fourth element is the damage occurred without authorization. This is not generally an issue, as we only have to damage, not access access without authorization. So you could see in the case of Citron, he had software that he used to deliberately, intentionally damage the data because he completely and securely erased it, and he did this without authorization. Section A5B, the second of those two parts of the section, has three general elements: intentionally accesses a protected computer without authorization and as a result of the access recklessly causes damage. So Section A5B focuses on access that was intentional and unauthorized. Section 5A focuses on whether damage was intentional or unauthorized. So whether the defendant intended to cause damage is irrelevant under A5B. You just have to show that the access was intentional and unauthorized. Citron was prosecuted under both A5A and A5B. Section A5C has three general elements: intentionally access a protected computer without authorization, and as a result of the access, causes damage. So A5B is similar, A5C is similar to A5B in that A5C applies even if damage was not recklessly caused, and A5C applies if the defendants caused both damage and loss. Loss in this case is any relevant cost to the victim. So that brings up a good point. If there is damage caused under which you may think that where the CFAA may apply, or any other case where there's a virus or denial of service or a compromise, it's very important to keep track of all the losses that are incurred by the company, both direct and indirect, because of the crime. And those will be used in the in determining the value of the things that were lost, as well as whether or not the crime is a misdemeanor, a felony, or certainly will help in the conviction of the criminal. Trafficking in passwords, Section A6, prohibits individuals from knowingly and with intent to defraud trafficking in passwords or similar information to access a computer without authorization, provided it affects interstate or foreign commerce or a computer used by the government. This was added in 1986 over the concern of stolen passwords being placed on pirate bulletin boards. That kind of shows you, again, how old the CFAA was. But 1996, we're still concerned about pirate bulletin boards. And, today we see that replaced by Tor sites and other types of dark web sites where you can find stolen passwords and user accounts that can be used to illegally access without authorization certain sites around the country. In this case, the trafficking means to transfer or otherwise to dispose of to another or to obtain control of with the intent to transfer or dispose of. In other words, you're gathering the data and you intend for it to be used by others in the furtherance of a crime. So you must show an intent to defraud. It only applies if the trafficked passwords allows unauthorized access. Section A7, threatening to damage or obtain, prohibits individuals from transmitting in interstate or foreign commerce any communication containing three types of threats or demands: the threat to damage a protected computer, the threat to obtain information from a protected computer without authorization or in excess of authorization, or impair confidentiality of information obtained from a protected computer without authorization or by exceeding authorized access, or the demand or request for money or anything of value in relation to the damage of a protected computer where such damage was caused to facilitate the extortion. Sounds an awful lot like ransomware, doesn't it? Does not depend on the actual access, damage, or obtained information. It applies only to the attempt to extort money from a victim. So in the case of ransomware, they actually do damage to the system, but they're still extorting money from you. And I'm certain that Section A5 would probably apply there. Section A7, I should say that Section A7 would apply there. So Section A7 is similar to the Hobbs Act. The Hobbs Act is a federal extortion law that imposes a fine of up to 20 years in prison for threatening physical violence to any person or property. Well, the property under the Hobbs Act does not clearly include the operation of a computer, data, programs stored in a computer or its peripheral equipment, decoding keys for encrypted data, etc. So in 1996, this section was added to address the emerging problem of computer-age blackmail. Think about that. Where was the internet in 1996? We were still very small at that point in time. I think I've seen numbers on the order of 16 to 20 million computer users at that point in time in the internet. And so internet was very small, but the legislators had the foresight to think that this would and could become a problem. Ransomware, as I said, Section A7 brings criminal and civil actions against hackers. The difficulty in prosecuting under ransomware is, first of all, the anonymity of the people who are conducting the operation, the fact they're using Bitcoin for the transference of the payment rather than send money to a certain bank account or to a certain person, and the origination for foreign countries, so the crime is actually originating more than likely outside the U.S. Most states have similar anti-hacking laws to the CFAA, but some states predate the CFAA. And some may cover many types of computer-related actions. An example in the text is in California there are like 154 types of actions that are covered under state and computer hacking laws. The link to additional state laws is on the Learning Activities page, so you can look there and see more and additional information on the state laws.